Oop. Okay, let's get this adjusted. It's so weird because when you're using the selfie stick on here, it is like kind of backwards. No, it doesn't want to. Okay, let's go right there actually. I like that angle. Okay, so just testing out this for a second here. Channel. And I'm gonna just pull up the live chat again. All right. Okay, so we're good to go. This is the first time I think I haven't had technical difficulties and I could hear myself in the stream. So I've got the comments on my laptop here ready to go. And yeah, so today's video, as you can see from the title, is gonna be about how I hide my pain, why I tend to hide my pain, and the consequences of hiding my pain. And this is really because of IIH being one of those invisible illnesses, same with migraines. So let's just get right into this because we just had a vlog yesterday, so I don't think there's anything that I really need to update on. Oh yes, there is. There is one thing I want to talk about. So I am just going to move this and just flip the camera here for a second, and I'm gonna try actually zooming in. Oh yeah, I can't do it on here. So zooming in. So we got our garden planted yesterday, and the biggest thing is that I basically am a little sore today. Now I gotta get this thing flat again. Okay, there we go. So, as expected, actually, I am a little bit more sore than, well, actually I'm not as sore as I thought I was gonna be. So I spent all day essentially planting, or most of the afternoon actually, planting those plants yesterday. And so being that I was on my knees and on my sitting down, the reason why I'm probably not more sore is because I was sitting down. So yeah, but as far as did I overdo it yesterday, I would have said chances are probably yes, under normal circumstances that could have counted. But I woke up and although yes, I'm tired and I'm sore, I'm not like completely paying for it. So that's kind of nice actually. I'm really happy about that. So just an update that although I planted the garden yesterday and probably did a little bit too much, I'm not quite feeling it as much as I thought I would. Okay, so now let's get into the topic of today's video, which is life with invisible illnesses and what hiding the pain actually means. So IIH and migraines fall into a category called invisible illnesses. This means that the pain is not visible to those around us. What that means is that when someone is looking at me, if they had no idea that I had IIH or migraines before my IIH was in remission, and now when I'm having a migraine, unless you openly say, I don't feel well today, or you're not coming into whatever event you're expected to be at, chances are you're probably not going to have people notice around you that you're in a lot of pain, or that you may even have any pain at all. You're going to appear fairly normal because there isn't a way that migraines look like. Now, I will say there are some subtle things that you can look for to tell whether I might be having a bad day. So I actually have this problem as it is, but I'm just gonna take my sunglasses off here. So if I'm having a really, really bad day, you'll notice dark circles underneath my eyes. Now that could also mean a bad sleep, but generally when I'm struggling, I'll have the dark circles under my eyes, and it's just a sign of fatigue. There could be some puffiness in there as well, but you're generally gonna notice that it's the fatigue. That is probably the only way you're gonna notice that I actually have the pain. So yeah. Um, so people often mistake a smile for being okay. And, when you're in a place where you have to essentially smile all the time and greet people and talk and communicate with people, where you have to be nice to people on a consistent basis, you often get asked colloquially, "How are you?" kind of thing. And it's dependent on the circumstances and the situation as to whether you can be open and honest about that question. Now, most people aren't actually interested. It's more of just a, passing custom. But when you really aren't feeling well, that's one of the circumstances that I absolutely hate that question. And just because I'm smiling, it doesn't mean everything's okay. I could be hiding a lot of pain, and I often am. There are times when you could probably expect that more. So, such as we're expecting a storm in the afternoon, or there's a lower pressure system that's coming through and expected to bring a rainstorm. That's generally the most common. So last week when we had a rainstorm come through, I was feeling really, really rough, but I was still functioning. I was feeling really, really rough. And I actually talked about that a little bit last week. Was it last week that we had the rainstorm? Might have been the weekend before that. I don't know. I lose track of time so easily these days. Getting into the next one, how much I hide how I'm feeling, or how much do I hide how I'm feeling? The answer, probably 90 to 95% of the time I'm hiding exactly how I'm feeling. So very rarely will I openly admit, especially in a public situation, how I'm feeling unless I'm on my own time. So very rarely will you get that from me unless I'm in a situation where I feel I can volunteer that information. But you kind of have to go with the circumstances of the situation that you're in as well. Like, you can't really just talk about that all of the time. Like, it gets old very quickly. And honestly, when I'm in that situation of being in the public or being at work, I don't really want to talk about that. Like, I just kind of want to focus on anything but that. And you know what? It's a situation too where not only is it not appropriate, but it may end up causing more confusion because you're trying to rush in explaining what you're trying to say to someone, and you could leave out crucial details that you would otherwise normally include. So I think that's really, really important too. People often mistake having something like a job means everything is 100% all of the time. So when you're forced into having a particular schedule, this could maybe not be a forced situation, but it might be a situation where you need to do something in a regular type schedule. You may not be able to just not do anything, and you're forced to do things when you're not feeling 100%. This is really, really common. It could be a job, it could be maintaining hobbies, it could be anything else. And a lot of people, especially like creators on YouTube eventually does become their job. And this is just a side thing for me at this point, but if it did become a job, there would be days where I'm working through pain as well. And honestly, I can say that today. Like, I've done a lot of work today because it's the time that I have to be able to do my work for YouTube. And it's, I am a little bit sore and tired, as I said, from working in the garden yesterday. But, you learn to push through those things that you can push through if that's an option that you're able to take. So yeah. A pretty good rule I have actually is if I'm mentioning my pain, it means that it's enough that I'm really hurting. If it's not being mentioned, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's often probably just not strong enough for me to talk about. And I may mention being in pain or taking pain medications in a passing way just to let someone know I'm not functioning at my best that day. And it's really frustrating when you're trying to do your job or do a job to the best of your ability, and you know you can't because you're not functioning at as high of an optimal level as what you would like. I know for me that's really, really frustrating. But it's something that happens, and you just do the best you can do in the moment in that situation. That's what I've essentially come to do over time. You just got to learn that you're doing the best you can, and at least you're present and there. And sometimes that's the biggest win of the day. There are days, even still, where getting out of bed and having a shower, this often happens on my days off, especially if I've been really, really busy, is the best thing that can happen is that you get out of bed and you have a shower. And if that's all you can do, that's fabulous. That's fantastic. And you know what? If you're having a really, really tough time, I would say that's a pretty major win in that situation. It's not easy trying to manage everything that you have to manage having either IIH or migraines. So sometimes the smallest of things for people who can function normally, they're often the biggest, how do I want to word this? They're often the biggest accomplishments for someone in our situation. It's nothing to be ashamed of if all you do is change out of one pair of pajamas and put on another. I did that for like months at a time when I was at my worst. And you know what? That's okay. And I'm telling you, it's okay. And being that I've come from that point where I got excited if I could have a shower, have a bath, and then put on a new pair of pajamas, to now where I can work 5 or 6 days in a row, like the contrast in that is just so big that I wish people understood how big that is. And if they were to see that, they would be like, wow, you've been through so much. The fact that you're here is absolutely amazing. And I 100% agree. So I'm telling you that as someone who's kind of come through that darkness, that if that's what you can do, is all you can do is get out of bed, have a shower, change into new pajamas, and go back to bed, and that's your day, you go for it. Okay, so I just want to see here. So going back to that rule, you know, it has to be, so you know how I talk about pain scales and how much I hate them? Well, the fact that I live at a 3 or 4 normally, I would say that's almost down to a 2 to 3 now normally, just because of what I'm able to do now compared to what I used to be able to do. So I'm going to say 2 to 3 is now my general baseline, probably sitting around a 3 most of the time. But it used to be that I had more days at 4. But on days where we can be expecting these bad weather systems, or, you know, I'm dealing with a bunch of different things that fill up the bucket that much more, it can jump to a 6 or 7. And it generally isn't until a 6 or 7 on my pain scale that I mentioned that I start to even mention how much pain I'm in. And, you know, it's a tough thing to talk to people about because it's not something that you can explain all that quickly sometimes. All right, getting into the next one. So it's not always appropriate to talk about my illness. Apart from this on social media, I actually don't like having to talk about IIH or migraines. I'm not good at communicating about my illnesses to people very effectively and very shortly. And because I feel like I'm rushed in trying to explain what I'm talking about, I often don't do a good job, and I probably end up doing a disservice to the awareness that I'm trying to raise through my videos than I do if I just didn't talk about it at all. And it's not that I don't want to talk about it, it's the fact that I feel like I don't have the time to explain everything that I need to. Like when people come into my channel and they click on my videos, they're on their own time and they can choose what they want to watch, if they want to watch anything at all. However, when I'm out in public, people may not be in the mood or have the time to really talk about what's going on. I actually find communicating with people about other topics, such as, you know, being gluten-free, is a lot easier to talk about because the answers are a lot more simple than it is with IIH and migraines. Like, you'll probably hear me talk more openly about something I never talk about on the channel, or hardly ever talk about on the channel, with being gluten-free, than you'll hear me talk about on the channel. And it's probably because I get a lot of things out when I'm talking to you guys on here, and that when I'm not in this situation where I am now, I don't feel the need to talk about it. Like, it's just, you kind of get out what you need to when you're on your platforms, and then it's just like, oh yeah, that is something that I do have to deal with. But, you know, it's just not an appropriate situation right now, and I feel like I can't do it justice in the way that I need to right now. All right, so one of the things that I hate is being offered advice when not asking for it. Almost every time I bring my migraines up, I either get advice or someone tells me the story of how their brother, aunt, uncle, sister, mother, cousin has migraines as well, and this is what they've done for them. Instead of just listening, I think people feel the need to offer advice because it feels like a way for them to help, when the situation is that sometimes we really are just trying to vent and trying to get out our frustrations about either A, how much pain we're in, B, how frustrating the last appointment was, C, what frustrations you're experiencing now, whether you're trying to find a new migraine medication that works, whether, you know, there's so many different things that you could be having trouble with, and sometimes all we want to do is vent. And when you offer yourself to people and talk about your medical conditions, you're more likely to get advice, especially if it's something more common like migraines. With IIH, people just kind of give you this confused look like that, and they don't really know what to say because it's not something that's well known, basically. Like, you just get those weird stares, and then they're like, oh, well, what is that? Which is great when they start asking the questions about what it is, but then you kind of got to get into the details of that too, and depending on the situation, you don't, at least I don't feel like I have the time to explain it very well. So, you know, this being, the fear of being offered advice, unsolicited advice especially, and for me, the fear of being offered advice about, you know, alternative medicine, things that people have tried to get rid of migraines or get rid of whatever, is very common. Like, I would say I've been offered advice a lot more than being offered compassion and understanding in the situation. So I'm less likely to volunteer that information because I don't want to have that come up. And especially when I'm in an awkward situation, or I'm in a situation where I may not be able to respond back in the way that I'd like, it's just not a situation that I want to put myself in. So I generally avoid it because it's just easier to avoid talking about it. Yeah, Melody, that is why I often don't talk about my IIH or migraines. Yep, same. And you know what? Like, on here, it's a completely different story. So, I seen your second comment, but not the first one. So, hi, Melody. I just want to say hi and acknowledge that. So, getting back in, see, this is what happens when I get into the live chat. I get completely distracted. But the fear of being offered advice is a very real fear. And it's one that I want to communicate a little bit better so that maybe there'll come a point where we don't feel the need to offer people advice and we can just offer a listening ear. Because one of the things that I found out the most about having this channel is that people often are looking for a place to share their story without the fear of being offered advice. I think is the best way I can summarize that. So people often want to have their story told, but they don't want that underlying fear of being offered advice. So if you're watching this and you know someone who has IIH, migraines, or other chronic illnesses, either whatever that might be, feel free on occasion to just listen. Listen, don't feel the need to offer advice. don't feel the need that you need to do anything except for be there for that person, and I guarantee you it's going to go a long way, because that person may feel then the ability to open up in a way that they never have before. So I think that's probably one of the most important points of this, is that why I hide my pain is because I'm afraid of being offered unsolicited advice that I know is not going to work. And you know what? People do mean well by it, as I was saying earlier, but it is just, there just comes a time where the situation is not appropriate, and because of being offered advice, we don't want to offer our story because we're afraid of that happening. I'm pretty sure I've gotten the point across. The honest truth is, I pretend to be okay and be well a lot more than I ever would the opposite way. So often one of the things you'll hear when people have migraines and they're calling in, or they're, you know, they're sick, a lot of things I hear from peers or colleagues, or, you know, is that, oh, that person's just faking it, they're not really sick. And this comes from people abusing phoning in sick, or not showing up to events because they don't want to come. But probably a good portion of people do want to be there, but they're actually sick, who have those conditions. So the truth is, I pretend to be normal and not have anything almost all of the time. Faking sick, or people being sick gets me frustrated just as much, because if there's ever a time where I have to do that because I'm actually too sick to be wherever I need to be, it makes me look bad as well, even though by the way that you are like carrying yourself, the fact that you hardly ever phone in, or the fact that you almost always show up when you need to be showing up, those times will be forgotten in those situations because of the people who have abused it. So I just got a comment here. I think the majority of my friends or family have no idea the extent of how it impacts me. I would say I 100% agree with your comment there. I have almost, I'm going to tell you guys a story. So when I was first diagnosed with IIH, there was a lot of sympathy and empathy given at the start. People were great. But as time went on and all of that, I don't really have any family that often shows that same amount of concern that they had at the start. And, you know, if you guys are watching this isn't a knock on you. Like, you can only put so much energy towards everything that you have. But there are honestly some who you start to talk about things that you've been through with your migraines or IIH, and they'll literally walk the other direction because they don't want to hear it. It is so frustrating. So yeah, it's a really, really big problem, and that's generally why there's often people that just walk out of your life that you thought would be there for you when you needed them the most, and they just walk away. Now, thankfully, the people that matter to me the most have been the most supportive, but I know not everybody has that. And that's something that people need to understand. Now, it's not just that people don't have a good support system, which they need that, but it's that people don't have any support at all, and they'll be told they're being dramatic, they're told that they're not actually sick, that, oh, you're just faking this to get attention. Why would, out of everything, would you fake something like this? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever, in my opinion. Like, you know, it's frustrating sitting on this end where you're trying to have a place where people can communicate about what they're going through, and then you have people who just don't care, and that's just the truth. And the most ironic thing, though, is that you'll have, over time, if you do start to open up about your story, whatever method or medium that will be, you'll find people over time who will care more than people who you're related to in blood or that you've been friends with for years. Over time, you'll meet amazing people, and those people will care about you. And throat's a little dry. I've been talking for too long here. But with time, you'll find the people who care about you, and they'll be complete strangers. So I strongly recommend that, you know, you guys try and find a method of opening up, whether that be writing, whether that be making video content like what I do, whether that be making TikToks. Short video is a big thing right now. You know, I'm not able to put as much energy or compassion or love into that as what I'd like, because I like this live stream content myself. But I think if you have an outlet where you can share your story, it does help a lot in reflecting on the things that you've been through and talking about. Now, some people may do better if they just kind of keep it to themselves. You know, it's going to be completely up to you what you do, and whatever you choose to do is your best way of handling the situation. Now, I just want to make sure, I'm pretty sure I covered everything that I had written down. The wind keeps turning my pages over. Yeah, that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. So I hope you enjoyed this one. The truth is that you find me hiding my pain a lot. It's the reality of the situation. It's, you know, it's the reality of the situation, basically. Oh, Reddit. Reddit is a great place to get information. Yeah, the IIH Reddit is an amazing community, especially when you have questions that doctors are clueless about. So I'm going to tell you about a few groups that have helped me. So for those of you who are ancient and still on Facebook, like me, there's a IIH discussion group on there with the Life with IIH page. So if you type in IIH, there's a private group there. And if you, sorry, there was a bee or something. If you go in there and you suggest, you request to join it, if you're still on Facebook, there's great questions and great answers. I don't actually read through much of the answers anymore because I don't need to, but specifically for IIH, and there's probably some for migraines as well, I've never joined them. I honestly have started to really not like Facebook, except for posting my own content. So there's that. There's a great community on Twitter as well. If you put in IIH into the search bar, if you're on that platform, you can follow Dr. Birmingham from the UK, which will keep you updated on all the latest research in IIH. I really like that, and I follow her specifically for that. She's a IIH specialist, and they're doing amazing research. So I highly suggest you guys check that out if you haven't. As far as TikTok, I haven't really explored the IIH community. I just basically throw my content on there and just kind of wander off. And I watch videos, but I don't watch IIH related content myself. I know that there's some community on Instagram because I've been putting my reels on there and people have been enjoying them, but like I said, I don't really go on there, so I'm not really sure what there is. Reddit's another great place if you have questions about IIH. I've seen some on Quora as well, but Quora is kind of an older platform too, but you can probably search for questions on there and it'll come up. I think that's kind of it for communities that I know of. There's probably other communities as well. I know there's a lot of photos that come up from Pinterest when you type in IIH into Google. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But you can probably find some type of community no matter what platform you're on. And then plug now for those of you who are interested in more behind the scenes content, want early releases on vlogs, I often release it a few hours early. Come and join me on Locals. You can follow for free, but if you do want the supporters only, such as exclusive content. It is $5 US a month if you want to do that. It's a way to support me. It's a way to support the channel. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. I think that's it for this one. This one was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed this one today. This is kind of one of those more obscure topics that I think needs more attention, but is hard to communicate about. So I think it needs a live stream in order to talk about it. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end this one for today. So I hope you have enjoyed this, and yeah, make sure that you guys try and connect with each other. It's another great way, another great reason to join locals as well. If we get a community on there, you guys can start posting your own stories as well. Like it's basically essentially like a Facebook community, but without any trolling or all of that, because you essentially have to be almost like verified, because you have to pay to put stuff on there. So yeah, thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.